So I find out all this information on Google before I go into the house. I find out it's a terminal illness. It is extremely severe. I mean, there's a range of hypoplastic left heart, but really all of them are severe. You can't go on without having surgery. There's just no way around it. They are also referred to as single ventricle babies. So what I did see is that they would have to be cared for at a level 4 PCICU. Again, I'd never heard of this. I only know of the NICU and the ICU. I didn't even know that there was a pediatric cardiac ICU. I didn't know that there were different levels. This just shows you how naive or uninformed I was about the medical healthcare system. I've been to the doctor a lot. I've given birth. I've had surgery. There's all these things, but when it comes to my kids, they've all been thankfully very healthy, and it's very rare that I've had to be concerned about them surviving. So I go in and I see my husband as soon as I walk in the house, and I pull him aside to our sunroom, which is what I'm in right now. It's an enclosed space, so it's hard for the kids to hear, and it's a good place for privacy. And I immediately start crying, and I tell him everything that happened at the appointment, and then I tell him what I saw on MyChart right before I came inside, and I go through all of the details that I found on Google. And I think for him, he was in shock just like I was, and he wasn't really processing what I was saying, but he knew it was serious, and he knew that I was seriously upset about it, so that worried him. He asked, well, what do we want to do? And I said, I think that we should just go ahead and go through the holiday like we normally would, or try our hardest to. Our kids deserve a good Christmas, and we don't know anything 100% for sure yet. So I go upstairs and I bawl for about an hour, and then I try to get myself ready. I don't put on any makeup. I don't try to make myself look presentable. I throw on a sweater and some jeans, and we go to church. And because of how busy church was, I was feeling very overstimulated and very overwhelmed because of all of the emotions that I was going through. I was seeing people at church that are part of my outside life that I had never seen at church before. And I was sitting here a complete disaster on Christmas Eve, and all I wanted to do was share what happened. All I wanted to do was say, I'm broken. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm so worried, and how am I supposed to carry this? So, I see my friends and I want to share with them, but I can't. And so I'm very awkward, and I have a really hard time having a conversation with them. And because of how busy it was, I wanted to find a place that wasn't so busy for us to be a part of church. So we went into the children's room, and the kids played the whole time, and my husband and I watched the service on a projector screen. And I had the hardest time paying attention to what was being said. And I really thought that I would be able to just kind of focus on whatever message was being shared that morning and, pull whatever I could from it to try and help me get through it. But I was really having a very hard time absorbing the message. And it was really hard. So we end up leaving right before everybody else gets out. We go home, and I go immediately to my room, and I cry in desperation for a couple of hours. I felt like our world was ending and everything was changing, and I had no control over anything anymore. And And all I had wanted was a safe and peaceful pregnancy and to enjoy every bit of it that I could. And here everything got flipped upside down on me. And on Christmas Eve, when I'm supposed to be like focusing on being happy and making my kids' holidays as enjoyable as possible. So I eventually get myself out of bed and try to look presentable to my children so it doesn't look like I'm crying so much. But the littles don't really notice a lot of things. My older one does. And he did ask my husband, is everything okay with mom? And my husband told him, you know, there's something that might be wrong with the baby, but we don't know yet. And once we know more, we'll share it with you. So we go to the relative's house, and I'm sure that I had like a resting bitch face on the whole entire time. I was trying my hardest to keep it together. You know, here I am surrounded by all these healthy children, half of whom are mine, and I'm pregnant along with, you know, a cousin of ours who's pregnant, and I'm just sitting here thinking, holy crap, like, you know, my baby is not healthy and I'm really, really scared, but I can't share any of this with any of them. So I have to sit here and pretend the entire time. And that was the hardest thing I could do. I wanted to be happy for everybody, but it was really hard for me to enjoy every single moment that I could. I ended up sneaking into the bathroom and crying a few times. And as soon as it was over, we went home. And then Eric and I had to do Christmas. We had to get Christmas set up for the kids. And I didn't want to do it. I wanted to skip Christmas. I wanted to just run away, but there was no running away from this. So we got Christmas set up, and then we went to bed, and the next day we handled Christmas just as we always did. We had family come over as well, and I had to keep making time for myself to grieve. A lot of it was anticipatory grief. I had no idea what to expect or anticipate, so I was grieving the fact that I knew something was going to happen, and I knew a lot of things were going to change, and I knew that this wasn't going to look like I wanted it to look like. And that might sound selfish, but that's exactly how I felt. I just felt like crap, you know. So we get through the holidays, and then the day after Christmas, my husband and I start making phone calls because I didn't want to wait for my provider's office to try and find a maternal fetal medicine doctor for me, especially since it had to be one. I wanted to find one that was very familiar with hypoplastic left heart. It's pretty rare. There's only about, I think, 30 or 34 babies each year, at least in Ohio at Cleveland Clinic, that are treated for hypoplastic left heart. And they come from all around the world to be treated. So we call a local children's hospital who I go through for my other kids, and I was really excited to try and, you know, use them, but they were unavailable until 23 weeks, and I just could not handle that. There was just no way I was waiting that long. No way. I needed confirmation. I needed to know what the next steps were. So my husband and I both called Cleveland Clinic, and they returned our phone call within like 15 or 20 minutes and had us scheduled in for January 2nd. They got us in within a week, and now we had a date to look towards, a date to focus on as we're researching and mourning what we thought could be. Now we have a date to put all of our attention to, just to survive to that point. And go ahead and go to part 4.